Welcome back, coaches. This is the Football Coaching Podcast. I am Daniel Chamberlain. We're doing things a little special this season to knock off this first episode. We are going to have a few different coaches on, and we're going to get some coaching advice. So advice for new coaches, advice for new head coaches. Just let the community kind of speak back into the community. So we've given a ton of advice on the podcast over my 3 long seasons thus far, and of course Joe's been doing it for even longer. So we're going to reach out and kind of let the coaches that we've seen doing things well come back and give back to the community here. So today I'm joined by Coach Spagner. Coach, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and just kind of tell us who you are, and then we'll get started with some coaching advice.
All righty, my name is Kenny Spagner. I know it's spelled Spagner, but it's fine, man.
I should have asked. I'm terrible with not asking. And
that's fine, man. It's either spelt wrong or said wrong, so I kind of get used to it. But no, my name is Kenny Spagner. I'm the defensive coordinator at Empire, which is a small school southwest of Duncan, Oklahoma, in southwestern Oklahoma. I just finished up my 4th year.
4 years doing it.
Yep.
What'd you do before you were a football coach?
Oh, man. Well, this is actually my second stint as a football coach. I started out as defensive coordinator at my alma mater at Fox, Oklahoma. And then I got out of it for some reason and went into the oil field for about 6 years. And then I was like, I got to – coaching's in my blood. I got to do it. So
money is the reason, Coach. I understand.
Yeah.
I walked out of a college education to go make money in the oil field. It doesn't always work out, though, right?
It sure doesn't. And it's a whole lot more stressful.
Yeah,
different stress, but it's a whole lot more stress.
For sure. Well, man, I'm glad you could jump on with me today. Joe and I talked about we're going to record some of these. He'll record a few coaches that he has around, that he works with well, and I thought this is a great time to, I know you had me on the podcast, and I thought what a great time for you to sell your podcast here on a larger audience and get you some numbers maybe. But the biggest thing is just that I know you talk to a lot of guys, and you're going to get advice, right? And you're going to find things that work that you see showing up year after year. With 4 years in the business, you've probably kind of formulated your own thoughts. So that's where we're going to start, is just advice that you could give to a new football coach. So just somebody coming out of college or wherever their life has brought them from, and spit them out into our world.
Absolutely, man. You talk about the podcast. I didn't really pitch that at the beginning. It's Kenny and the coaches, and for some reason I'm difficult and had to spell my name with Kenney. So if you go to search it, don't forget that extra E. But no, man, talking with all the coaches and the people outside of the coaching realm that are involved with the kids in Oklahoma, I've even gotten some good things from them. But the big thing I think, as a coach coming into it, just, straight out of college, is be humble, and you don't know everything. That was the biggest thing whenever I first started. I was like, I know football up and down, left and right. And I wasn't really receptive of other people giving me advice. And that's the mistake I made. And just from listening to, some of the coaches in the state of Oklahoma that have won multiple championships and, been there and done that, it's the thing that I wished I would have known way back when I first started, is that I don't know everything, and that other coaches are not these mythical people that you can't talk to. Most of the time, we're all in a brotherhood. There's going to be one here or there that just want to, don't want to tell you anything. But for the most part, there's nothing new under the sun in football.
Right.
And if you're having trouble with something, don't be too proud to ask someone for help.
Yep.
That would be the biggest thing I wished I would have known coming in, that I don't know everything, and that, hey, it's okay to be humble and ask for help.
So there's a scientific, this is documented in science, what that generally is, and it's the Dunning-Kruger effect, right? And that's where you don't know how complicated things are, and so you think you have it figured out, and then you fall off that cliff, and then my God, and right, and I think everyone does it. I don't know that anyone hasn't experienced that in their life at some point. But coaching is that thing, because you come in, maybe you have a good mentor, maybe you buy into a football system like, Joe Daniel, whatever, and you read
Mhm.
and you go, got it. This is football.
Yeah.
Understood,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
then you know the science, but then when you got to get to the art part of it, the installing that and how to work with different types of kids and how to work with other coaches. I mean, man, it just falls apart very quickly. And then, you can get too advanced in scheme. I mean, some people just do some
Absolutely.
absolutely crazy stuff. And I had a friend of mine tell me he recently spoke to a defensive coordinator and he drew up this cockamamie defense on the a coverage on the board, and he was like,
Mhm.
"That's what we're running." And he was, okay. He's like, "It'll take me a day or two to tell you about it, right? To get you to understand it." I
Yeah.
said, maybe that's too complicated. If it's going to take you 2
Absolutely.
days to tell me, it's going to take you 2 weeks to tell the kids.
Mhm.
Maybe that's just too complicated. So we can
Man, and
get crazy, but
that was one thing I learned way early too, was especially on the defensive side, the more simple that you can keep it for kids, the better it is. Because if you start, we're going to run cover two here. If we see this, we're going to run cover three. The simpler that you can keep, especially for those secondary guys, it's the simpler, the better. There, that is. I think that's even the football coaching podcast thing.
right.
More
Yep.
simple. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. Sorry,
It's
but
okay. Coach simple, play fast, win. Right. And
yes,
that's
yes,
that's Joe's that is his coaching philosophy, and I mean, he built his business around it. Just keep
hmm
things simple, let your kids fly around, and you're gonna win football games. If you I experienced that as a DC my first year as a DC, right? I tried to install split field quarters, matching things, and we
yeah.
didn't need it. I was led to believe we needed it. We were going to face four verts 10 times a game all year, for each game of the year, and that's not
hmm
how the world worked. Um, but still, I could have very easily just kept things simpler and gone a lot further there. But
hmm
all
Absolutely.
right, so one last little question, and I'll let you get out of here, man. And that is
Okay.
just, what is a piece of advice that you have received that you kind of see showing up over and over again in your coaching career?
I think just that what I said about the keeping it simple, because I mean these are kids. Most of them, they're not like us coaches that kind of almost live and breathe football. The the simpler that you can keep it for kids in the football realm of things, the better that it is. And also, I had to learn this going, when I first started, was they're not just X's and O's. I mean, they're kids. They have real problems that they're coming in the U.S., so they may not be understanding what you're. They may be understanding, but they've had a really bad day or they've had a bad night at home. So, I mean, the relationships that you build and keeping things simple, those are the things that I when I go into a practice, if I'm coming up, or even in our game plans or practices, I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay, is this simple, and how can I use this to get to the kids that I'm coaching, find out how their day is and stuff like that. Because that's, I think we talked about that on our podcast, or on my podcast, about you don't know what these kids are coming from, and building those relationships with those kids are something that's going to last way beyond football.
Awesome. All right, man. Well, I appreciate your time. We will, uh, you know, take this and put it together with the other kind of a compilation of coaching advice. Your name should be right there among the top ones that we're bringing in. So, Coach, we
Cool.
definitely appreciate it, man. I hope the show goes well. I hope you continue plugging along with your podcast. I enjoy listening to it because it took me back home to Coach Ridley and those guys. And I just loved getting to go back and listen to them. All my coaches were on there talking. So
Yeah.
it's
Well, man, I appreciate the opportunity to be on here. I listen to this podcast every time it comes out. It's every Tuesday, isn't it?
we record on Tuesdays and it usually comes out on Thursdays. Yeah.
Thursdays, yes. I knew
Yeah.
it was a day that started with a T.
There you go. All right, Coach. Appreciate it. One last time, plug your podcast, and we'll shut her down.
It is Kenny and the Coaches, Kenney and the Coaches.
All right. Appreciate it, Kenny. We'll talk to you very soon, sir. Have a good one.
You too.
I'm joined today by Coach Kenny Ridley, a huge mentor to me and someone I really look up to. And Coach Ridley was my defensive coordinator in high school and taught me, I think it was 8th grade science, maybe 9th grade science. I don't know. I remember the Punnett square was the first thing that he brought into my life, like that I remember. So, um, that's why I'm a science teacher today. So both sides there getting a lot of mentorship from Coach Rid. But Coach, if you don't mind, man, just give us an introduction about yourself. How long you been doing this? Where all you been?
As Daniel said, my name's Kenny Ridley. Been a lifetime educator. This is my 28th year finishing up and teaching and coaching. Doesn't seem like that long ago, but I'm a former college player at East Central University in Ada, Oklahoma. My head football coach, Pat O'Neill, played for Coach Bud Wilkinson during the 47-game win streak at OU. So I have a pretty good football lineage. A lot of the things I do today were things I did in college with Coach O'Neill that trace back to Coach Wilkinson. So it's kind of a great football heritage in Oklahoma. We've got a lot to be proud of and a lot of coaching lineage that Daniel's definitely a part of. And so that's kind of where I came from. I've been a defense coordinator primarily most of my career. Been a head coach for about 15 years of the 28. So had a chance to do a little bit of everything throughout the course of my career. Been in a couple of 3A sized Oklahoma schools where the ADM was probably around 300 maybe. And I'm currently the athletic director and former head football coach at a Class B 8-man school in Wilson, Oklahoma, which is where I currently am.
There's a big difference in size there, huh? 3A down to Class B.
Yeah. We had, I think, 139 kids in Wilson. Had about 20 kids out for football, so that was quite a big difference from the glory days of having 75 kids or so at Marlow back in the 90s.
Well, we'll start there then, Coach. I kind of want to hear your comparison and your coaching style and how things had to change. Not really kids' numbers and talent pool. We all understand that as a difference, but you as a person, how you had to coach, what changes did you have to make, and just kind of compare and contrast those.
Yeah, I had the opportunity. I coached at Lone Grove, Oklahoma, my first year out of college, which was a program that didn't have a ton of tradition. Went there for a year and kind of got my feet wet working for a great coach that taught me a lot about how to handle kids. Had the opportunity to go back to Marlow, which was my hometown, and it was a tradition-rich football program. It was easy to coach there. We went to the state championship game 2 out of my first 4 years of coaching, and I thought, man, this is so easy. It's how it's supposed to be. We ended up being runner-up twice, so I incorrectly assumed that there would be many, many more opportunities and plenty of gold balls on my trophy case, and wasn't quite as easy as what I figured it was as a 23, 24-year-old young coach starting out. But Marlow was a great place. Worked for an unbelievable coach named Ron Newby, and we had a good participation in football. It meant a lot to the kids to play and be Marlow Outlaws. It meant a lot for the community to support the football program, and when you've got depth and you've got plenty of kids to choose from that are eager and willing and are doing what they're coached to do, it becomes really easy. Left Lone Grove in 2000. I left Marlow in 2000. Went back to Lone Grove. I'm not a big change person. That was where my wife was from, so we came back home to her place, and there wasn't as much tradition. It was a different atmosphere and a different climate. So we had to convince kids that they needed to come out and be a part of the football program. I think our numbers were probably around 25, 28 kids when we first got there. And we built that over time. And I think Coach Curtis Cole, who is my former assistant, is the head coach there now, has around 75 kids out. So things are really rolling at Lone Grove, and was glad to be a part of the transformation in that community and that football program too. I still reside in Lone Grove and really proud of the work that they've done there and that I was able to be a part of. So, a big part is just depth and instilling that belief that football is important, instilling the belief that the kids can be good and can do what they want to do as long as they buy in to what the coaches are selling and just have the vision for success. And in a 3A school or bigger, I think it's a little bit easier because just having those numbers allow you to have increased competition in practice, and it causes those kids to hook up a little bit more, I think.
Yeah. So when you moved to 8-man ball, you moved to Wilson. What year was that?
This is finishing up our 5th year, so I guess 2018 was our first football season there in Wilson. And when we got there, we had 16 kids out. We finished the season with 9. So we barely squeaked through week 10 with enough to play. And it just becomes difficult from a competition standpoint, there's a pecking order that the kids know, and you can't, you can try to create competitive situations, but at the end of the day, they look around, see each other, and kind of almost know where they fit in the grand scheme. And that does make it difficult when you're trying to advance. If the only opportunities you get to improve yourself as a squad are in game situations, you've basically only got 10 opportunities to get better. And that was kind of what we faced there early on at Wilson. Since that time, we've got our numbers up over 30. So again, I think the health of a program can be seen in the numbers of participants that you're getting. If kids want to come out and be a part of something good, be a part of something bigger than themselves, as my head football coach in college used to say, I think that really speaks well to what's going on in the program.
Did you feel like selling the program took time away from developing kids? Like, because you're having to, that time in the preseason, or you know what I mean, summertime, is you're either developing kids or you're walking the halls trying to get more. Did those take away from each other, or did they kind of help each other?
I didn't spend a ton of time selling it outside of in the beginning. When I took the Wilson job, it was a kind of a rough transition. Guys, I apologize. I'm outside. I'm a chicken farmer. I got a couple of turkeys. So if you guys hear unusual noises, it's just my home barnyard going on here. But these guys are making a little bit of racket. So, but anyway, the guys at Wilson initially weren't going to come out. They weren't happy with the regime change, and so I went into a classroom the week I got the job and just talked to the kids and told them that I knew what Wilson was about, knew what kind of kids they had. I was there by choice. I wanted to work there. I wanted to be a part of what they had going on, and basically my opinion, and I shared it with them at the time, is there are really three main components to build any kind of success in an athletic organization within a school. You've got to have a great administration that's going to believe in the direction that you're wanting to go as a coach. And I really felt like that we had that in the superintendent that we had hired, that hired me ultimately. The second thing, you got to have talent. I knew the kids at Wilson had some athletic ability. And you've got to have talent to win games. A lot of times you hear people talk about how coaching's overrated, and I do believe that coaching is a crucial component of it, but it's really hard to bring those kids up to a championship level if they don't have some innate ability.
Right.
And the third is community support. It's kind of a triangle that needs all three pieces to function properly. And I thought at Wilson at the time we could build those three things. The community really thought of themselves as a basketball school initially, and we won some football games early and got people excited about it. We've just put together a bond issue and finishing up a new stadium project that we have there. So we've kind of made football important to the community. So I think those three legs of the triangle are in place there at Wilson. And the sales job was mainly in the very beginning to get them to come out, and I think they could see it as they won a few games.
That's awesome. I agree that y'all have done a great job. I've unfortunately made a few games, but it seems like every time we do, you're run rolling opponents. So you at least have the talent, and you've put it all together there. So kudos to you. There's an 8-man school here that's open near us, and it just scares me to death. Like I can't imagine coaching 8-man. It's just such a change in philosophy, and I don't know. It's just strange to me. So kudos to you for being able to bump down and make it successful. I mean, because y'all had to go. Did y'all go to 11-man ever, or y'all were just supposed to that one time?
They had been an 11-man school traditionally, and then several years ago their enrollment plummeted, and they wanted to keep playing football, so they went to Class B and played 8-man. And when we got there, academically, we started doing some better things in the classroom. Had some kids come back that had moved away, and our enrollment went up. We actually petitioned back down to remain an 8-man. It really fits our school. It's a fun game. I wouldn't be afraid of it if you're a 11-man coach and have the opportunity to coach 8-man. A lot of people that I'd spoken to previously really kind of poo-pooed the fact that it was real football. It's
right.
It's not real football, but it is. It's a lot faster game. you can score a whole lot more points. The defense is always behind the 8 ball. It just seems like you're outnumbered all the time. But it's really been enjoyable. If I had the option to go back and coach 11-man versus 8-man, I don't know that I would. I think I would stay in 8-man at this point in my career. So, if you have that opportunity, you get a chance to go watch an 8-man game, jump on it. But football's football, is blocking and tackling and getting kids to work hard and have fun. So
awesome. All right, so we're going to talk about some new coaches now, which is the real reason to have this episode in the first place. We just want to talk about advice, so your best pieces of coaching advice or advice in general, life advice, I guess. But for a guy who's new, cutting his teeth in the industry, coming out of either high school or college, or someone like me who jumped in way later in life and had another career. So what is your best advice for a brand new coach?
There's a couple things I was thinking about when we first started talking about this, and number one is just be a good listener. I think in today's world, we've all got social media. We want to put something out on Facebook, see how many likes we can get. We want to put something out on Twitter, and most people want to express themselves. Most people want to have a voice. Most people want to be heard. Most people want to, show what they know. And I think in today's world, it's really important to stop and be silent sometimes and listen, because we can learn so much more by listening than we can by speaking. And I think young coaches, if they just stop and listen, they're gonna learn from their mentors. They're gonna learn from the people around them. They're gonna learn from their kids. They can learn from their parents. So, all the relationships that are crucial to becoming a good coach can be enhanced by listening and finding out what your stakeholders need or what they have to offer to you in your program. So I'd really just advise, sometimes you don't necessarily have to dazzle the people that you're working with or dazzle your kids with what you know by just, spewing information all the time. Take a step back, stop, ask them questions, listen, assimilate the information that you've been given, and have a plan going forward that fits that particular situation.
Yep. I spent some time with Dominic Franks over at University of Tulsa this spring, and that was something he said was, like, he came in as a new position coach, and he didn't go out spewing his knowledge and his history. I played for NFL, I played at University of Oklahoma. No, he just corrected them on a small thing, and then when they went to the film room, he said, look, here's with the thing, here's the outcome if you do it the right way, here's the outcome if you don't. And that's all it took. Now he has fifth-year seniors that are bought into who he is. They went and did their own research, right? Like, who is this guy? Who is this new coach? So it's kind of what you're saying is beautiful, because he's not overselling himself. He was a good listener, and now he's making those kids be listeners. Like, it's pretty neat. It goes full circle.
That respect factor is going to come more so from what the kids find that you can do for them, as opposed to what you've done yourself in years past. Coach Franks is still a relatively young man. He's not far removed from his playing career, and he's got probably a whole lot more street cred as a football player than what many of us do as old coaches. So, the things I've done in the 1980s, early 90s as a player really don't mean anything to my kids, and they could care less about my accomplishments personally or what I can do. I still try to make them look bad as a scout quarterback if I can occasionally. If you can provide them with tips and things that help them, they don't want to look bad either. Kids don't want to look foolish. They don't want to get burned. They want to be successful. So if you can provide them with tips and information and specific, guidance that are going to help them individually, you can throw out blanket things by position, but what I can tell this kid may be completely different than I can tell the next kid in the same position group. So right. I've just got to give the best counsel and the best information based on the individual that I'm coaching.
Absolutely. All right. If you're talking to a new head coach, someone's finally taken the step, whether it was a coordinator moving up or someone who's just position coach moving up, what's your best few pieces of advice for that guy?
Hey, I do want to backtrack. I do want to go back for a coach. One more point that I think is really important besides being a listener. We see a lot of young guys, especially in our school now, that come in and they're kind of waiting to be told what to do. Be proactive. There's so many duties that a head coach has, so many duties that a staff may already have in place, that if I've got to tell that guy to pick up trash or help clean the weight room or inventory equipment or whatever, there's so many things. If you'll just, again, it kind of goes back to being a good listener and being observant and watching. There's so many things within a staff, within a program that need to be done. And as a new coach, if you can go in there and be proactive and don't wait to be told what to do all the time, be active, be engaged, be involved, be a helpmate to your staff members, be a help to your program. I think that could be a really huge asset for your staff and for your school, because it seems like a lot of the younger folks that we're having right now, just I don't know if they're just reluctant and they don't want to overstep their bounds or step on anybody's toes. But I can tell you from my personal experience, it's a lot more impressive for us to have people come in and grab the bull by the horns and go to work. I'd rather redirect somebody that's being overzealous or overeager than to just continually have to cajole and beg people to do work or things that they may feel aren't within their scope. Just a real quick story. I've got another coach from my staff that is a head coach in our area named Matt Suffel. He's head coach at Dixon, Oklahoma High School and athletic director there. First time I ever met Matt, I was at an East Central game, and these guys were coming off the field and they were throwing sweaty jerseys and sweaty pants through a half door, hitting this guy. He's grabbing them, and I was introduced to Matt Suffel, and I asked him how long he'd worked at East Central. He goes, "I don't work here. I coach at Lawton High." And he was back there being a help to East Central staff and was doing laundry after a game that he had been there to watch as a spectator, just like me. And that guy's got it going on. Had a chance to hire him 2 years later, and I jumped on it. He's a great coach. He's one of those guys who aren't going to sit around and wait for somebody to tell him what to do. He's going to get busy and do it. So, that's one classic example of an impression that you can make that could pay dividends for you in the future. But Matt's a great guy and definitely did that. Just, be proactive and, ask questions and jump in there and roll your sleeves up and help your staff.
That's a beautiful piece of advice, because I'm sure every staff has that one or two guys that just, it's like a bump on a log. Like you just can't get them to do anything. And then they get that aura about them. Right. And now that's the first people cut loose. If there's too many coaches or if another guy applies, like it seems like those are the guys that have to go. And they may be good coaches. It's hard to make them get up and go. So
we've had those conversations of, are you born with it or can you be taught? And I don't know if that self-starter gene is just inside of people or if you can be taught. But if you can be taught, be mindful of it. Don't be standing around watching other people push a broom or work. Grab one yourself and go to work, because today's coaching, there's more and more responsibility, paperwork, more and more responsibility, with parent relations, more and more things to do. The higher up the food chain you get in coaching. So if you're that new coach coming in to a staff, the more you can do to help alleviate the stress and the pressure and the workload of the people above you, I think that'll go a long way toward your bringing value to your program. To your point, Daniel, I'm gonna think long and hard to cut loose that guy who's indispensable and valuable. And it can be little things. It doesn't necessarily have to be the person with the most football knowledge or the most go balls on the trophy case like we were talking about. It could be that person who's the go-to and who's the glue guy that holds keeps the ship running.
Right. Small pat Coach Ridley on the back here story. So I can remember same time I'm learning Punnett squares and biology. I was walking through the breezeway out of the junior high toward the high school, and I looked down to the field house. And anyone's been to Lone Grove know that's a pretty long distance down there, but lo and behold, there's Coach Ridley picking up trash. Trash can had tipped over, blown all over the place. A whole class of kids had ran out of whatever morning football was or whatever, time of day. And that was just something I took with me forever, to the point that this past year, my head coach joked like, "Dude, we need to get you part of the janitor's payment because you pick up more trash than they do." And that was just the smallest gesture. Like if you're never too big to pick up trash. And I carried that with me in the military and taught kids there, which, the military is a really big place where, that pecking order you talked about earlier, like some people do think they're too big to pick up trash because of their rank, right? I'll just tell someone to do that. But man, I really appreciate it. It's one of my fondest memories of high school and of you. And And it's such a small little thing, but it did make me into a lot better person just watching you do that. So I do appreciate that. I mean, just who you were as a person. And it's part of that just being proactive, like how to be a good coach. So
Yeah.
It's good stuff. All right, on to head coaches. So new guy taking the reins. Best few pieces of advice for him.
Man, I think as a new head coach, just carry yourself as a professional at all times. Again, I think a lot of times people nowadays, more so than when I started 30 years ago, I was a coach, and that was my identity when I first became a coach and a teacher. And we at that time, it may seem antiquated now, but we had a code of teacher conduct, and we actually had to sign an agreement that we were going to espouse the values that represented our school district, represent our profession, and that meant something to me then. I think now today, a lot of coaches may have an easier time of splitting their personal life from their professional life, which that's all fine and good. And if you do that, that's awesome. But I want to carry myself as a professional that's going to represent my kids and my program and my school district and myself at all times. So, if I'm at Walmart knocking around or whatever, I want to be still seen as Coach Ridley. I want to have that the respect that goes along with the title that I've put in a lot of work to earn. So, just make sure that you carry yourself as a professional. You don't do anything to undermine the credibility that you're going to need to get those kids to buy in to do the things that are tough to do sometimes out on the football field or in the classroom. So, professionalism, I think, is a great start. And that also goes along with being a good classroom teacher. I know most all of us have heard, the best teachers, the best coaches are the best teachers. There's so much more to our jobs than just coaching. If you're coaching at a big enough school to where that's all you do all day is coach and sit around. I've had a chance to visit some schools in Texas where we went down about 9:30 in the morning and the coach's office is full. Guys got their feet up on their desk, drinking coffee, jacking around on the whiteboard. And I was like, what time do you guys go to class? Oh, we don't teach. And I was like, what? So those guys were professional coaches, which is an awesome gig. But for me, I typically taught 4 to 5 hours of biology, and I had 2 coaching periods the bulk of my career. So proportionally, I spent more time in the classroom than I did, on the practice field. So we have a duty and we have an obligation to be professional in the classroom to empower our kids to be successful, whether they go to college or become citizens, whatever subject matter that we're teaching. We owe it to them to do a good job in the classroom as well. So
I really feel like that that's part of your buy-in anyway, in my eyes. Like if the kids come by and see me slacking off at being a teacher, why do they need to, that doesn't teach them to always like carry yourself as a professional. Just do your job all the time. I'm really big on, and it's the military side, but like, your duty. What is your duty? What do you owe the community or your teammates or the coaches, whatever it is, and in that respect. So I run those two together pretty heavy in the classroom as well. But if they come in and I'm not making them follow rules and I'm just kind of letting them get away with everything, or I'm trying to sneak by and do the littlest amount of possible in the classroom, I'm not, when I'm yelling them at practice, where's your effort? Or why aren't you doing this? Or why didn't you watch film this week? Whatever. I've set that precedence. I've set the standard, and if it's low, then I can't go back and be mad at them because they're like, hey man, I just watched you try to, kind of sham off in the classroom and then come down and be a great coach. I think they go hand in hand. So that's a good piece. A good piece of advice.
100%, man. If they have that dichotomy where it's this way certain periods of the day and it's another way another period, it's like flipping that game switch. Consistency is such a key to being good at anything that you do. Where if we don't do much in practice, but we expect to flip that switch on game night and go out and have a unbelievable result, typically doesn't work that way. So you want to be consistent in what you do and be consistently great. And if you can do that, then you're going to get better results, in my opinion.
Absolutely. One more piece, Coach, and I'll let you get out of here. Anything else you'd just like to tell a new head coach?
Well, I got 2 more. I made some notes out.
No, I like it. Let's do it.
The next thing, next thing I wanted to share is just, man, as a coach, think outside the box. You hear a lot that there's no original thought anymore with football. Everybody's a thief, and all the things that we've learned coaching wise, we've stolen from other people. But where that may be true, we can still think outside the box. And just because the coaches, the green notebook from the water boy tells us to do, to do this, you may reach back into your files from way back, or ask a person outside of coaching, how would you handle this situation? What do you think about this? And so sometimes unconventional ideas may benefit you in ways that you really wouldn't think of. So, we all learn certain techniques. I've been in places and had kids where maybe their flexibility level didn't allow them to get in a proper stance that the textbook, told me to teach. So, I had to adapt and change some things. Just use your imagination sometimes, think outside the box, do things a little bit differently that, again, fits that specific situation or fits that specific player. And I think the rewards can be better for you. If I've got a kid who can't get in a good stance and I'm not playing him because of that, I may have failed him, and that kid may be able to provide value in a different way, or a way that, isn't textbook. So, just, think outside the box as head coach, and that could go for your staff too. There may be value that your staff members bring that you can utilize, and just try to maximize what your people, what skill sets they bring to the table for you.
Absolutely.
And then the last one, I just wanted to share this one because it's served me well. Man, as a either a young coach or as a new head coach, just make sure and maintain a work-life balance. We hear about the stories of people like John Gruden in the NFL that gets to the office at 2:30 a.m. and spends all these hours and time coaching football. And I know that's a completely different level than what most of us are engaged with. But Bob Stoops, when he came to Oklahoma, they had specific, purposeful times that they had family time. They didn't sleep in the office. They went home at the end of the day to be with their kids. And Ron Newby at Marlowe, when I worked with him, he was a big family man. And we spend so much time investing in other people's kids that if you don't watch out, you're going to look back 20 years later, and the kids that were born to you are being raised by your spouses, and you've invested all this time with other people's kids, and your kids are out the door, and you haven't been able to be as big a part of your lives as what you should be. So just make sure and maintain that work-life balance, and don't let football coaching be your exclusive identity. And that's the thing that I would probably like to share with especially young head coaches.
Absolutely. That's great. There was a story came out this week or last week. Nick Saban said that his staff they've worked 7 days a week, and I forget ungodly amount of hours for however many years. So as long as he's been doing it, he's not had a day off from football. And that's just mind blowing, because he was still second place this year, or third or fourth or whatever he was, right? And other people are doing it with way less time in the office. I can't fathom spending that much time at doing anything, really.
Yeah, and if that's where your joy comes from, if spending that much time and you have that singular focus and purpose, I admire people that can't do that, but you do it at a cost, and just you don't want to hit a point to go, what did I give up to get to this point? I do think that you can be highly successful maintaining a balance, and find joy in what you're doing. But, those guys, hats off to them. I've got several friends I went to college with, some to high school, that have spent the bulk of their career in Division I, and they've put in the time. It's a 24/7, 365 job, which, I think if you really cornered those guys and set them down and asked them, they would have some second thoughts if they had to go back and do it again. But, you can still be a great coach. You can still get your work done. You can still invest your time and your craft and your kids, but still spend time with your spouse, significant other, and your children. And you just don't want that time rolls by fast, man. It seems like the other day I was that, brand new 21, 22-year-old football coach, and now I'm about to turn 55, and I don't know where the time's gone. And my kids are all grown and gone, and I'd sure like for a couple of days back with them if I could get it. So that's my advice for what it's worth.
Well, I appreciate it, Coach. Well, any last pieces of anything before we close out?
No, man, it's been such a great blessing for me to have the chance to speak with you on the podcast. And, you guys are doing such a great thing helping coaches, not only with X and O's, but providing some life advice and just making people well-rounded. So makes me proud of you, makes me proud of the organization you're part of.
Well, I appreciate it, Coach. It means a lot coming from you, obviously, a lifetime mentor. So thank you very much. And I have fun doing this. So it's great to me and getting to merge my worlds and coming out of the military and preach military things to football coaches. And I take football coach things to the military. So it's great. It's been a great way to put those two pieces together, and we have a lot of fun doing it. So, well, man, I appreciate it. Thank you again for coming on, and we will love to have you back on sometime. So we'll be reaching out for sure.
Sounds great.
All
Good
right.
luck to you guys. Everybody has a great season next year. If I can ever be of help to you guys, Daniel can share my email address. Had several folks reach out talking about the transition from 11-man to 8-man that we had discussed on the previous podcast. That was a lot of fun. Had some good feedback there. So if I can help any of you guys, any of the listeners, I'll be more than happy to.
Perfect. Appreciate it, Coach. Have a good one.
You too. See you, Daniel.
I am here with Coach Bill Blankenship today. As y'all know, we're doing the special cut-up episode, so we're going to ask for some coaching advice from Coach Blankenship, who's been doing it many a year. Coach, speaking of, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and kind of tell us who you are?
Well, Daniel, Bill Blankenship, and starting my 40th season. I've had probably been coaching on and off since, so closer to 43, but I had a couple of gaps in there. Probably happens to all of us, either sometimes on purpose, and sometimes we choose, sometimes they choose. But so this will be 40 seasons. I am now at Owasso High School. Have most of my years have been in Oklahoma high school football, small schools all the way up to big schools. We're in schools like Eastwood Christian when I first started, which was probably a Class A or maybe B. Then I had a chance to coach for a brief time at Sapulpa as an assistant coach to Steve Spavital, and then got to go back to my hometown in Spiro and coach there for 4 years. Had a great time back in Bulldog country and getting to kind of relive my youth.
Right.
Got another chance to go to Edmond Memorial from there, which was unbelievable because that at the time was the biggest school in the state. Had 2 years that were not great. They were hard, but it was a great learning experience for me. And then we got an opportunity to go to Union. And at that time, Union's not like it is today, but it was still an outstanding program. And so really put my roots down and stayed there 14 years. And then got to probably restless as much as anything else, and decided I wanted to try something else. And that was such a good idea that I had to sit out a year because I didn't get a job. But then I got an opportunity to coach at the college level for the next 9 years, and absolutely loved that. That ended a little sooner than I wanted to when I got fired at Tulsa. And then I did spend another year at Memphis before going back to high school ranks. And Fayetteville, Arkansas, had a short stint there. And then a friend of mine that's the athletic director here in Owasso made this a great job for me to come back to and be around my grandkids.
You had a short stint in Fayetteville, but I'm pretty sure you went over there and won it all, didn't you?
Well, I got to be part of that. Yeah, we did. That was wasn't there very long. We did win a championship, and that was fun to be a part of.
That's awesome, Coach. Well, I have appreciated all the times you've come on and spread your knowledge with us here because, there's not a lot of championship winning head coaches, and those of you that get one tend to get them all. So, us guys that are still striving for that first one, love talking to you guys. And that's
I want to always say this too, Daniel. I'm proud to be known as a championship coach, but it's really important for coaches to understand. I coached, I think 19 or 20 years before I ever won one.
Right.
And so, you've just got to keep your head down and keep working, and good things will happen at some point in time.
So I'm going to ask you for some advice. But before I do, I kind of want to talk about, you said you've been at small school, 1A or B type schools, and then all the way up to the biggest in the state. What were the differences you saw there? We know kids and numbers and talent pool, but just on the coaching side, was there different roadblocks in your way, different ways you had to coach or had to handle coaching there?
It was quite a learning curve for me. Coach Garner and I, Mark Garner coached with me at Spiro. He was our O-line coach, and we became great friends and coached together for a long time, both at Edmond and then later at Union. And we always laughed that we wish we had known what we learned later at Edmond and early at Union when we were at Spiro. And it wasn't that you're any smarter or any it's not about the football is what I'm trying to say, but there are advantages when you start getting around people that have coached at a high level in terms of organization, just tips and ways to do things that are a whole lot easier. I shouldn't say easier, but they're easier learned by the players. So there's just a lot of mistakes made along the way that, I think the fact that we were at small schools early, we would love to go back and have those same opportunities again. But yet I think there's a lot we learned at the small school of having to do everything. The coaches that I hire here are spoiled compared to the guys that are operating, at the middle and smaller size schools. I taped ankles for years. Now I haven't touched a roll of tape, or none of my assistant coaches do. We've got trainers at the big school level. We've got strength coaches. We've got people that make sure our field looks good. And, when we were at Spiro, it was normal routine to get your kids out of class on Friday to go out and paint the field.
Right.
So that we had the lines and the logos and all the stuff done. And I wouldn't trade that, but, you get to a point at a bigger school, sometimes you go, man, what did we do with all the time there when we're not taping ankles and we're not, lining fields and mowing grass and moving sprinkler systems and all that kind of stuff that we got to. And thankfully the turf has come on and not as many people are dealing with it as they used to, but there's still a lot of guys out there that have to spend a lot of time doing things that nobody talks about just so they can get to coach.
I'm a big fan of natural grass, and
yeah,
I kind of take that bonding time. Like, okay, it's just us coaches. We go out on Wednesday or Thursday, whenever it's not going to rain, right? It's inevitable that it's going to rain the day before the game.
Yeah.
So you're painting on Tuesday night or whatever. But I appreciate the time just talking with the guys. Usually the seniors come out and help, whatever. The kids that we know won't mess it up. I love that time. It's part of coaching that I love. And then everyone around me is like, we need turf. Can we get a bond for turf? And I'm like,
right.
I'm not such a big fan of the turf, but I understand that it's part of the game, and a lot of people are going there. Well, all right, well, I won't talk too much about me, Coach. So first, I'd like to ask just a few pieces of advice for a new coach, someone that's never been in the profession, coming out of college, or like me, coming out of a career later in life and switching to the coaching profession. What's a few things that you would say to that guy?
Well, I think it's probably true in other areas of our work life anyway. But I would tell you the number one thing is ask questions, get a mentor, find people that have been down that path and listen to them. That doesn't mean everything they say you have to do, but you need input from people that have done what you're trying to do. And usually in the school system, there's a guy there and maybe more that have a lot of experience. And so, it may be the principal, it may be a guy working out in the bus barn or someplace that there are men there that have coached and have done it at that school. And there will be some unique situations that you need to know about. Like now, if I know this, and I've counseled guys to do this. So if you get a new head coaching job, I believe one of the first things you need to do is to find out from the guys that hired you and ask people, as these people I'm telling you that have been there before you, what are the untouchables? What are the sacred cows? What are the things that going to get me in trouble, and I can blow my leg off on a landmine just trying to do something nice, and sometimes that's, you want to get a new uniform and the kids are all excited about that, but boy, you better not take away those white pants that have been the tradition, at that school for forever. When I came to Owasso, it was very clear that you could do a lot of things and they'd help me buy a lot. Do not change the rams on the side of that helmet. Those ram horns mean something to the people of this community and especially the alumni. So there are things that guys with great intentions can just blow themselves up doing because they don't ask. And so get some advice, get some, and not just football advice, but how do I navigate around here? What are some things? I'm rambling, but let me come back.
That's okay.
Just like I say to players, the best question a player can ask at any time is, Coach, what do I need to do to get on the field? Okay. If there's a person in your life that is around this community or around the job that you're trying to do, you may have to hunt them out, but you need to say to them, please, 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 if there's something I need to do to make this a better deal for our kids and for me, please tell me. And what do you think about this? And then I would go back to, you got to be willing to take it all in. Now, that doesn't mean do everything that people tell you. You got to sort it out and figure out, does that fit with you? And does that fit with your boss? And does that fit with the new schedule and all the things that you have? Because some of it may be dated. But for the most part, there is good advice out there that we just refuse to ask because we think it makes us look, less than prepared. And I get asked this a lot. They'll ask me about a coach on my staff that is trying to get a head coaching job. They'll say, is he ready for that? And I'll say, no, he's not. But he's probably way more ready than I was. I don't know that you can ever be fully ready for a job until you've had that job before. And so the biggest mistake I made as a young coach was trying to act like I had it all together and I knew everything. And I didn't really want a lot of old guys around me because they intimidated me.
Yeah.
Instead of going, man, I'd like to lean on your experience and wisdom here. And I can still be the head coach. I can still make those decisions. But boy, it would have saved me from a few limbs getting blown off of myself from the stupid mistakes I made.
I think there's that is trending right now where staffs are just stacking experience because it's got to be such a headache in today's world to be a head coach that a lot of guys are just like, I don't want to do it anymore. I'll be your coordinator. I'll just be an assistant.
Right.
I love hearing, talking to Joe quite a bit. They've got some guys that have 2, 3, 4 state championship rings and they're like, nah, I'll just coach linebackers. I don't need all the headaches. So coaching is a lot of fun.
I would say this in my again, 4 years brief time of head coaching at the university level. I had 4 former head coaches on my staff, and it probably won't surprise a lot of people that those were my best assistant coaches. Yeah. And it's not because they're the best at what they do, but the experience gives you a vision for things that other people don't have. We have a hard time seeing big picture until we're in a seat that requires us to see big picture.
Right. How
does this decision affect these things? We don't think about that when I'm just a position coach, or if I'm the offensive coordinator, all I care about is offense. But decisions I make may impact a lot of people around me, and people that have experienced it can help you to see it.
Absolutely. So new guy coming off the street, we talked about tell him to ask questions, find a mentor. What's one more piece of advice we could give to a brand new coach?
There is no shortage of opportunity to learn this game. I wonder if I would have been as diligent 40 years ago when we started, if I had as many tools as there are out there now. Everything from podcasts to clips, cut-ups, YouTube videos. If you cannot find people that are teaching your position well, you're just not trying.
Right.
And we used to have to get a notebook and go places and sit down and hear lectures. And that's still, I think, important to do, and go visit people that are doing it. But, oh my gosh, I can't believe the amount of information that is not even something you have to buy. I mean, you're certainly good stuff to buy, but there's so much free here on the internet that if you'll just get diligent, you can learn a lot about this game very quickly. In the kind of things that took some of us in another generation, probably took us 15 years to learn, you ought to be able to do that in a couple.
I think that's a whole new dynamic to being a new coach, is that you can legit walk into your first day on the job with 3, 4, 5 years experience of X's and O's.
I agree.
I think
100%.
it changes. I look back to Kenny Ridley's my mentor. I can only imagine the day he walked in the office the first time, 30 years ago or whatever.
Yeah.
And he did it. He probably he'd played collegiately, so he had some X's and O knowledge, but not a lot. And then what scheme is that new team running, right? He's got all this stuff to learn. And nowadays it's like you can go look at their huddle or look at their max preps and know what they run and go study that and show up and be like, here's your offense. I mean, it's an insane time to be getting into this industry. It's a lot of fun. All right, I'll let you out here in just a moment. Last piece of advice for a brand new head coach. We talked about don't mess with the untouchables and find somebody that's been there, been around that can tell you what the program needs. So what's one more piece for a brand new head coach?
Know why you're doing it. I mean, you better be clear. If you just want the position and you just want the title and you just think this is the next right thing to do because I've been an assistant and I've been a coordinator and now I want to be a head coach, or even if you're the new guy coming in out of the business world wanting to become a coach, you better know why you're doing this. And the reason is obvious in a lot of areas. I mean, we're going to be able to lean on that when times are tough. We're going to be able to know, where my center is, where I'm going to hang my hat, because ultimately the great thing about our job and a really bad thing about our job, and just what we were talking about on the internet and the way social media operates today, it'll take you about 15 seconds to offend somebody or to find somebody that'll tell you didn't make the right decision in the game. And if that is going to be your measuring stick of how, much approval I get from the outside world, you're going to have a hard time ever being successful at anything, let alone coaching, because coaching is everybody that sits up there has coached somebody. It used to be, I used to really think baseball had it the worst because there was so much little league and so much. Now there's so much football. Everybody has either got access to, all the NFL games and nobody, I mean, you can't watch games now without having some commentator telling you that the coach is not making the timeout call at the right time, that he's mismanaging his offense, or that and so now everybody that watches TV has an opinion when the coaches mismanage things and they don't do it right. Okay. You better know that's the world you're getting into, and why did I get into it? And it's usually not what we get to later. We love athletics. We love kids, or we want to give back, or we want to do that. I want to make an investment, all of those things, but you better find that hook of the reason you want to coach and make sure you're clear about that, because you will have doubts when you start having all this other stuff hit you.
That's awesome. Well, Coach, man, I appreciate it. Thanks again for coming on and spreading the knowledge. We will for sure be hitting you up again, I'm sure. Any last comments before we get out of here?
I love guys like you that just want to continue. This is one of the things that people can do to just continue to grow. And you're not doing it just X's and O's and just, all that stuff, but you get pieces of that, but you can also get a lot of wisdom just hearing from the kind of guests that you have on besides me.
Yeah, we've had some really good ones.
Yes, you have.
I certainly appreciate it. You've been one of my favorite to talk to. So, well, Coach, we'll let you go, man. Thank you so very much.
All right, my friend.
Yep.
Good talking again.
Tonight, I am here with Joe Daniel, but Joe Daniel is the guest of honor for this podcast. We're continuing our sequence of best coaching advice, which is all this episode is about. So you've listened to other people, or you will listen to them wherever they happen to be on this podcast. This will get clipped together later.
I won't go first.
Joe won't go first, so this will not be the first one you heard, obviously. Welcome, Coach Daniel.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I try to almost weekly, basically. Just have a couple questions tonight. So, this episode's all about coaching advice and what you would tell a new coach or whatever. And I just have two questions. The first one is going to be, if you've got a new guy that's cutting his teeth in the profession, brand new out of either college or later in his life, like I did, coming out of a different career, what would your best advice be for a new coach?
There's different people are different, and I know that, but I think we all have kind of the shiny object syndrome, and we're all looking for, especially early on, we're all looking for the magic bullet. There's the idea that there is a certain way to do it. The biggest mistake you can make as a young coach is coming in and thinking the way to do it. So the first thing is know what you don't know, which is really hard. But just if you come in with the understanding that if you've never coached before, you don't know much, right? It's just not an insult. You don't know much. Certainly probably don't know, you don't know everything for sure. So the first thing is kind of knowing what you don't know and coming in and saying, I got a lot to learn and that's great. That's great advice to be a sponge and soak everything up. But the problem is when you become a sponge, you start to soak things up and you start, and everybody, and guys think this is because of people like me. I hear this stuff that because you've got, coaches that are trying to make money, running a business, and they're selling their stuff. Dude, everybody's been selling their stuff since the dawn of time. Everybody's been, the way I read Bear Bryant's 1960 manual. It was before he even went to Alabama, before he ever won a state championship or a national championship. And Bear Bryant was convinced that he knew everything there was to know about football, right? It's just the way that it is. And so the second thing is, don't chase the shiny object. Learn, but if you're on a staff, hopefully you've got a staff that already, you're being taught a certain way to do things as a new coach because they've already got their offense or their defense in place. Ideally, you come in as a position coach or a JV coach or something. It's relatively, you don't have a ton of freedom. That's the way to come in. You shouldn't have freedom. You should come in and be taught and be learning for several years. And if people like your situation where you were kind of thrust into a coordinator spot is very hard because but if you do get thrust into a coordinator spot, as a lot of our youth coaches do, your kid's team needs a coach. Well, there's only two of them. And it's like, you're going to do offense, you're going to do defense. In that case, you find somebody in either case. Hopefully you're in a program that has somebody at the top and says, this is the way we're going to do it. If not, you find somebody, I'll throw myself out there. You find somebody who's got a way to do it and you just do it that way. And don't be afraid to learn other stuff, but don't get, for somebody like me who is like, I'm not diagnosed ADHD and I'm not going to claim to be ADHD, but I have every symptom that there is.
Driven. Coach, you're driven.
Right. But
I read the book.
Did you read the book? It's a great
book.
The book. Driven. I have every symptom that there is. And very easy for me when I was early coaching Go, oh, this is the one. This is the one. This is the one. This is the fall in love with something and learn every piece of it and think I had found the solution to football. And then either be pissed off that my head coach was so dumb. He wasn't dumb at all. My head coach was a massive help building my career and a great football coach. But to be pissed off because, and a lot of young coaches get this way, they're pissed off because the head coach or the coordinator or whatever is so dumb because why do they not see this? And I get people who come into JDFB and they're young coaches and they go, I just cannot convince my head coach to do it this way. And I'm like, well, he's that coach. Suggest it? Sure. He says no. Okay.
We did a whole episode on that about leaving videos playing in the coach's office and dropping subtle hints.
Yeah, dropping little hints. But at the end of the day, you do it the way that they want to do it.
Right.
And my upcoming season, I'll be back in that. I'll be part-time volunteer basically, and I'll always have my input, but it's not going to be the same as when I was coordinator. It just can't be because somebody else is in charge. Yeah. And at the end of the day, I just go, okay, here's my idea. We're not doing it. There are a lot of right ways to do things. There are a lot of wrong ways. There are a lot of right ways to do things. So learn, but more importantly, whoever's in charge, figure out what they want to do and do it to the best of your ability. Don't get caught up in shiny objects and thinking that somebody else has the way.
Second question here is I'm taking it from you because I did things different on all the other interviews I did. So what is the best advice you ever got from another coach when you were coming into the business?
Trying to think like early advice. I go back to,
I know it's been 28 years ago.
It's been a long time. It's been 20 years. Legitimately 20, this is my 21st year. I took 2 years off. So this would be technically my 19th year, I think, but maybe 20th. I'm not sure, but I was probably getting yelled at for being insistent upon we've got to do this in a staff meeting because of something that I learned. So this wasn't in my my first year and my second year. I don't remember any. I did get some great advice from a coach. I'll give two here. This is my podcast. The first one was my very first year of coaching. I did not have a good year. And I did not get a lot of mentorship from my varsity head coach. And I was the JV offensive line coach or something. And I'll give my varsity head coach the benefit of the doubt in public. It was his first season there, so he probably had a lot going on establishing what he wanted to do. But I didn't go well. And I finished that season feeling like even though I had played high school football, I had played college football, I had tried to learn as much as I could, but in 2002, there was no, it was going into Barnes and Noble and getting, how to coach football successfully, which is like the most generic, but I tried everything. I bought everyone I could find, I didn't know about Glazier clinics. My staff didn't do that stuff. I didn't know about Coach's Choice. My staff didn't do that stuff. Coach Huey didn't exist. Tried to learn as much as I could, but I ended the season feeling like I'd been basically a failure. We finished 1-9. Varsity finished 0-10, but I was really frustrated with football. I ended up coaching wrestling for Tyler Mosley, who's still coaching here in Virginia. Basically, the only reason I'm a football coach is about halfway through the wrestling season, I didn't know anything about wrestling. I went 0-5 on the JV my freshman year. I knew nothing about wrestling. Absolutely nothing. And he said, we were sitting in the office. Man, he ran this program like a clock, this wrestling program. Like we sit in the office and those kids go out there and they do their 20-minute jog and stuff and start their warm-ups. Well, we could sit in the office and hang out and it was going to run. I mean, it was going to run. It could be late and it was going to run. Like no coaches there. It was going to run. It was amazing. It was a fantastic coach. But he just gave me like this. He's like, what do you think about football? And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to coach football anymore.
The Joe Daniel.
Yeah, this is my first year. This is months after my first season ended. And I said, I don't know if I'm going to coach football anymore. And he said, remember how he phrased it, but it was something like, "Do you think that you could take over a football program?" And I was like, "No." He's like, "You think you'd be a coordinator?" I was like, "No." I was like, "I'm not even sure I'm going to coach anymore." He's like, "What if?" So we were at Smithfield High School, and Smithfield is in Isle of Wight County, Virginia, and the other high school didn't have a wrestling program. I don't know if they do now. Just Windsor High School. They were single A, much smaller, and they didn't have a wrestling program. And he said, "What if Windsor started a wrestling program next year? Do you think you could take that over?" And I was like, "Yeah, I could run a wrestling program." And he goes, "Do you know more about wrestling and football?" And I was like, "No, I know nothing about. I know what I learned from him, and that's it. Because I don't remember what I was doing when I was a ninth grader, getting decked on JV 5 times." And he said, "It's only because you're confident in wrestling and you're not confident in football. Has nothing to do with what you know or your actual ability. Because you're confident here, and you had a, and we're doing good things, and this thing runs well, and it did, and it, went really well with wrestling, but you had a bad year in football, and you have no confidence in yourself as a football coach." But I mean, yeah, basically he was saying you're a better football coach than a wrestling coach, but it's all confidence, and that's it. So that was great advice to me. The second one was a few years later, my second job, and I don't think that I was defensive. I think I was JV defensive coordinator, and I think that I had installed the 3-5-3, and then the varsity installed the 3-5-3, but I did all the research and all the work, and I was kind of subtly stabbing the defensive coordinator in the back so that I could take over the following year. We're still friends.
Joe.
We're still friends, but he's not the first, and he probably won't be the last. But it was in a staff meeting, and I was getting yelled at for being obnoxious about something. I'm doing this is the way I think it has to be. Basically, he told me in those certain terms, you can't stop everything. And from a defensive standpoint, that makes a lot of sense. Is to accept, no matter what you do defensively, you open up weaknesses. If you strengthen the B gap, what gap are you opening up? Well, if you fill up all the gaps, you're opening up behind you or outside of you or somewhere.
Right.
The 11-on-11 game is absolutely beautiful because you can't stop everything. There is no way to overload. And from the offensive standpoint, it's understanding they can't stop everything. There is something. Keep trying. There is something. The only way that they can stop everything is if they are just flat out physically better than you. We had a playoff game this year where I think they tried to stop everything for about 3 quarters, and we were able to find the weaknesses. And then the fact that they were just flat out better, and I think stopped trying to stop everything and just decided to beat us, was the difference in the game. And unfortunately, they realized I'm pretty sure they knew that lesson, but they figured it out again by about the third quarter. Unfortunately, but it's you can't stop everything. This is a beautiful game. There's absolutely it's questions and answers. It's however you want to word it. It's if thens, and it's just finding that weakness.
Awesome. Is there any advice you would give to a new head coach that would be different than that of just a brand new coach?
Are you ready to quit? No, I mean, like, hey, I wish you would have asked me before you took the job. I'm not saying it. Everybody thinks that they need to be a head coach, and if you feel like you need to be a head coach, you should be a head coach. There's nothing. I think some coaches get into a head coaching job. This is terrible advice for a new head coach. Like, this is not going to inspire anybody. I think some people get into head coaching jobs and they're like, but this is my experience as a head coach. So everybody gets into head coaching jobs and they feel like they can never take a step back. Like, that ego won't let you. And if you don't love it, and a lot of coaches find that they don't be afraid to take a step back, go get a coordinator position, take a year off. I was so much happier once I did that. And but as a head coach, develop your staff. Just pour everything you can. Give your players and your coaches power. Ideally, you give your players and your coaches power, and you spend a lot more time developing your staff. You shouldn't, you shouldn't get to coach as much if you're developing your staff. You ideally, in an ideal world where you do a great job as a head coach, you don't get to coach that much because you've developed an offensive coordinator, you've developed a defense coordinator. I mean, look, we all I stayed coaching offensive line, being an offensive coordinator. I didn't do a great job developing with defensive coordinator. Didn't do a great job developing my young guys. You need to put a lot of time and effort into developing your staff.
Right. All right, Coach. We appreciate your great advice.
Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. I know that you're pretty new to podcasting and all, so this is
I just happened to have this mic and all this stuff there.
It's a new thing. It's a brand new thing. For those of y'all listening, we assume this will be the last one. We'll see. We appreciate you listening to this very long episode. I don't know how long your interviews were. Mine were all about this long, so it might be the longest episode in football coaching podcast history.